everybody, I'm Reese, and I got a tortoise.
Alright, yeah, and I'm Nick, and we got a pair of Russian tortoises here. Russian tortoises, these are probably my favorite species of small tortoise. They're kind of the perfect little pet land turtle or tortoise if you wanted something that didn't live in the water, but you wanted a turtle or a tortoise. These are definitely the way to go. This one here is a young adult male. He's still going to put on a little more size. But they stay fairly small. 5 to 6 inches is about average for an adult male. This is an adult female. Now she could get a bit larger than that. I have seen a few that can get a little bit bigger than that. But 8 or 10 inches is about it for them. These guys eat nothing but salad greens, so we feed them a variety of lettuces. When the weather's nice out, we put them outside and they eat grasses and weeds, and one of their favorites is dandelions. We don't give our Russian tortoises any fruits and vegetables. You do have to be careful with that. They should not get a whole lot of it. From time to time we might give them a carrot stick to snack on, or maybe a little slice of apple. But we're kind of careful about what kind of fruits we give these guys. Probably best to keep them primarily on just the greens. They don't need a lot of sugar in their diet.
So, I know you said you have these guys out recently. It's been a little bit chilly. What kind of, like, can you put them out all year, or?
You can keep these guys outside all year in the majority of the country. They're from Russia, so they're pretty stinking tough. You can put these guys out there in almost any weather if you set them up properly. We have a 8-foot by 16-foot outdoor pen. We secured it down 12 inches into the ground and then 12 inches above, so they can't climb out or dig under.
They climb?
They will climb, yeah. They're not the best climbers in the world, but if you don't make your walls high enough, yeah, I learned that the hard way as a kid. I lost a box turtle that I was supposed to be keeping. They are much better climbers than you think. Look around, I've seen images of turtles climbing fences and stuff. So yeah, you want to make sure that your walls are not going to be climbed over. And then what we're going to do is we're working on getting our hibernation setup done this year is the plan. We're going to dig a hole. Here we're going to go down below the frost line. So we got to go down about 4 feet. Then we're going to pack that hole with rotting leaves and straw and stuff like that. So that'll help when it decomposes. It'll put off a little bit of heat, and that'll allow them to stay down there. The idea is you want them to stay at about 50 to 55 degrees. These guys can go a little lower than that if necessary. Yeah, we have a fairly large enclosure for our Russians, and we've got it planted up with different bushes and whatnot. We use, lose my train of thought, bird baths. You take a concrete bird bath and you set it down into the ground, kind of dig it out, and it makes a perfect little water dish for these guys. Yeah, so concrete bird bath tops make the best little water dishes for these guys in an outdoor enclosure. They're real shallow. They're usually ramped all the way around, so it's easy for them to get in and out of. And they like to go to the bathroom in the water, so they're real easy to hose out. I'll hose mine out usually 2 or 3 times a day in the summertime and refill it with fresh water. That way they always have something fresh to drink or poop in. I always tell people, you know, tortoises are awesome. I love my tortoises, they're great, but of all my animals, they're probably the most dangerous. They're definitely the most likely to poop on you. I've been pooped on by more tortoises than anything else I have. So you do have to watch out for that. They actually have a reflex, whereas if you were to go out and you pick up a tortoise that's not used to being handled, they'll go to the bathroom. So that's a good thing to keep in mind if you're in one of the desert regions of the U.S. or anywhere else in the world for that matter. You don't want to go around picking up wild tortoises. They go to the bathroom, they're not going to be able to regain that water until it rains, and in some places that can take quite some time.
What's the average land speed for one of those?
Land speed for one of these? I have no idea. They're a lot quicker than you'd think. Probably, you know, about walking speed, 5, maybe 6 miles per hour if they're really trucking. I've got a couple you bust out a dandelion and they will hightail it for you.
I know this one was trucking around the studio today.
Yeah, she can cruise. These guys do like to move a good bit. So that big enclosure we have for them, we usually won't put more than about 6 or 7 tortoises in that space. Once we start getting up to that height, the plant growth starts being cut back. They can't keep up with the grazing these guys will do. So we try not to go higher than that in there. But they roam the cage all day long. I have a big butterfly bush in there, and they have been known, a couple of the females in particular, not this one, but a couple of the smaller females have been known to climb up even a couple feet off the ground into that butterfly bush to get to the fresh leaves, and they actually eat the leaves off the butterfly bush. So,
What's the average lifespan of one of these tortoises?
depending on who you talk to or where you've read, I've heard estimates anywhere from about 80 to 100 years. If I remember correctly, I want to say the record was slightly over 100. Both of these guys here, well, she's about 16, she might be 17 years old now. This guy here is probably about 7.
They're extremely docile.
Yeah, they're pretty easygoing. They're not all this easygoing. I had some older males that were kind of grumpy and didn't want to be messed with. I got one female at the house that'll give some people a hard time, but for the most part, this is what you get. You know, this guy here, he's gone out and seen lots of kids doing programs. This girl here was a family pet for years and years and years. They raised her from a little bitty baby, and then things happened, you know, and they just weren't able to hang on to her, and so they passed her our way. So she's doing well. Most of the Russian tortoises found in captivity up until recently were wild caught. Now they're doing a lot of farm raised. So you're getting a lot of farm raised imports from Russia, and they usually won't bring them in until they're at least this guy's size, about 4 inches. You also get occasionally some U.S. captive breds. They're actually more popular from what I've seen on the internet. They seem to be more popular in Europe, so you get a lot of captive breds in Europe. I'd like to see these bred more in captivity. I'd really like to see them work with more. They're fantastic small little species. There's a handful of small species out there that are good pets, but because of how hardy these guys are, I mean, they're basically indestructible. You give them a good variety of greens and make sure they got water available to them, and they'll do anything. So for a starter tortoise, a first pet tortoise, you can't do any better than a Russian tortoise.
Well, I mean, I feel like in general, if you would want like a beginner reptile or a beginner turtle or something like that, I feel like these guys are a good starter, because I remember growing up, Mom would just pick up a box turtle off the side of the road, and
yeah,
these are a good alternative.
Definitely a good alternative to the eastern box turtles. We have a lot of people in this area that like to pick up box turtles, take them home, keep them as pets. I really don't like to see that. I know in some states it's legal to a certain degree. Personally, I ask everybody not to do that. The box turtle population is not what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, it just keeps going down. And the big reason for it is to get hit by cars on roads. You know, people think farmland is great. I see turtles crossing the road, box turtles crossing the road around farmland all the time. But if they lay their eggs in where that land's going to get tilled, well, those eggs aren't any good. So it's not really that great. There's not a whole lot, especially in our area, of habitat left for eastern box turtles. So let's just leave what's out there out there.
So if somebody found an eastern box turtle, like around farmland, what should they do?
Let it be. I mean, it's got its routine. It's going to be fine. Hopefully it chooses to lay eggs somewhere out of the way of the tractor's routine. But, you know, it's going to survive just fine out there. Let it cross the road. If you see it crossing the road, you know, you can always help them go the direction they're going. Never take them back the direction they're coming from. They knew where they were going, and they're going to keep going that direction. You just increase the odds of them getting hit by a car. So it was good intentions that went bad. You know, in general, you know, what I tell people, I love to go out and catch stuff in the woods. You know, you find something out there, it's awesome. You know, maybe you pick it up, maybe you play with it for a minute, you get some good pictures, let it go. It doesn't need to come home with you. They carry parasites and all kinds of things that their bodies are meant to be able to deal with in a natural setting. You bring them into the house, and all of a sudden now they're in that aquarium. They can't get away from those intestinal parasites and whatnot. You got to get them properly vetted and everything else. And if you don't know what you're doing, and in all honesty, in our area, good luck finding a vet who knows what they're doing to do that work for you. So if you don't have that knowledge, then you just don't need to have those animals. I have to do the vast majority of my medical work for my animals on my own, because there's just not somebody available to help me with it. Luckily, I have a background that allows me to do that, but not everybody does.
See, personally, with acquiring reptiles and stuff, I obviously looked for a good exotics vet, what have you. Closest one I found is in Mechanicsburg, which is about a 40-minute drive.
That's not bad. That would be about 2.5 hours from me. So if it's an emergency, we're out of luck. You know, you gotta learn some. You should know some basic medical care. And the truth is the vast majority of simple problems you're gonna run into with a pet reptile are very easy to fix at home with simple home remedies. And that's how I've done it for years. And I have fixed everything from egg binding to, you know, impactions to, you name it. All the normal stuff you hear about in reptiles with simple home remedies and no ill effects on the animals.
That's not to say you shouldn't go and Google how do I fix this and do it yourself.
No, you should probably contact somebody like me. There's more breeders out there and very well-respected people in reptile keeping than you might think. Look somebody up who can give you some advice and direct you along the way. You know, honestly, if somebody local calls me and says, hey, something happened to my bearded dragon, will you take a look at it? Yeah, I'll take a look at it. You know, if it's something simple I can help out, awesome. If it's not, then I'll direct you somewhere else. But a lot of times breeders and experienced keepers can help with those sorts of things.
I have a question. What's the chances of finding these turtles in the water swimming around?
They aren't going to swim.
They're not going to swim?
No, they don't like deep water. Most land turtles or land tortoises actually can't swim. It's kind of humorous. Box turtles actually sink. I learned that the hard way. I was about 15 years old and I had gotten a hit by car box turtle and rehabbed it myself and thought it was fantastic. And I had this outdoor setup for some red-eared sliders. And I thought, you know, there's plenty of land area, you know. I thought, well, maybe that would be great for it. And then I couldn't find her one day and I dug around on the bottom of the pond and she was down there. She had sunk. She was alive and well when I pulled her up. She hadn't been there long, thank goodness. But I learned that quick. She didn't go back in that enclosure. Box turtles do sink. And since then, there are many people out there who can educate you on that. I did not do the proper research. So learn from my bad habits and don't do that sort of thing.
Don't put your box turtle in a red-eared
Don't
slider.
put your box turtle in a red-eared slider enclosure. No, they will sink. So keep it shallow. Keep it shallow, and they'll do just fine. They like water maybe an inch or two deep. They can soak in, but keep their head above the water. They will drink, but mostly I find my guys just chilling out there in the sun on their back, and they'll just stretch their legs out while they're sitting in the middle of the one of the bird baths. They think it's fantastic.
When they're breeding and stuff, what's the average egg clutch size for an average female?
You know, I haven't actually worked really hard to get my Russians to breed, and I've never actually received a clutch of eggs that I know of. I keep my guys in such a way that if they wanted to breed, they could. But the truth is I just have never had a group put together in circumstances where they would breed. I hope that my guys will start breeding here soon. This guy was starting to show some interest in the indoor enclosure, but because they didn't cool down, it's kind of a coin toss whether or not the girls are actually going to be interested in breeding. So we'll see. Maybe we have some babies this year, maybe we don't. I don't keep everything that I keep just to breed. Some things I just keep because I like having them, and Russian tortoises are definitely one of those species that I just like to have around. So if they breed, they breed. If they don't, they don't. As much fun as it would be, I haven't decided I was going to work that hard at it quite yet.
What's the average age for them to breed at?
From what I understand, most males are mature right around 6 or 7 years old. Some take a little longer than that. It also has a lot to do with how they're kept. If you keep them under natural circumstances, they're going to take a lot longer to grow because they're going to be going through a long brumation period. Whereas if you keep them in an indoor enclosure year-round with optimal conditions and an abundance of food, they're going to grow much quicker and reach maturity at a much younger age. So it has more to do with size. You're going to want your males to be about 5 inches long. You're going to want your females to be probably closer to 7 or 8 inches before you breed them. A more mature female is going to probably lay a larger clutch, and it'll be easier on her system than a younger female. Yeah, the legs never stop moving. They're constantly trying to get going. Not a tortoise's favorite thing to be held.
I've noticed.
Yeah, they don't like being held very much. They prefer to be down doing their own thing.
So, which is bigger, male or female?
Females are always going to be larger in the Russian tortoises, and usually by quite a bit.
I feel like that's a theme throughout reptiles in general, that the females are normally bigger.
Sure, it makes sense. For reptiles, generally, what we find is that they're at the bottom of the food chain. So what we have is them being eaten a lot. So what's going to help their survival rate is if females get larger, because then a larger female has the ability to lay more eggs or produce more offspring. And the males being smaller allows them to be more efficient in their dietary needs. This guy's not going to have to look for as much food as she is, which means he can spend more time hunting for her. And in breeding season, this guy, when he's showing interest in the girls, and I've seen other males do it too, and you have to keep them apart because they will get so interested in the females they won't eat. Even kept outdoors with all the food they could possibly want, they're not eating. And I've had males that lose weight being kept in an adjacent enclosure to females, to the point that I was concerned for their health and had to actually bring them indoors to get weight put back on them, because no matter what I put in front of them, they wouldn't eat. Not even dandelions would get them to eat because they wanted the ladies.
Now, can you have multiple males together?
They will fight. If you put groups of males together, they will crack shells against each other and try to determine who's the boss. If you have a pet Russian tortoise and it's male, my recommendation is to keep it alone. You don't need another one. Females seem to be pretty good as long as they're given enough space. If I keep my girls in too small an enclosure, there's been times they've been outside and I gotta lock them down because we got a real cold night coming, and I put them in too small a tote. Well, they're all going around knocking into each other, and they climb up on each other's backs and nip at each other. And I just separate them into multiple, holding tubs for the night. But yeah, as long as you give enough space in the outdoor enclosure, you hardly ever see them together unless it's feeding time. We'll dump a big pile of greens in one area and they all come over to eat. Otherwise, they all disperse in their own little areas. They all got their own little hide spots, their own, grazing areas. They don't cross paths a whole lot. They're definitely not a social animal.
I'm sorry, I keep asking questions.
You're good.
But say if I wanted the box turtle that stays inside most of the time, how would you trim the nails?
Trim the nails?
Or a Russian
tortoise?
Yeah.
My recommendation would be to put things in there that they can wear their nails down on. My guy's here, I'm looking at, he's got a couple back nails that I may end up deciding to trim, but usually what will happen is I'll leave them outside and they'll grow because they were indoors over the winter. Outside, I'm going to put them out there and they're, I got hard ground. They're going to be digging in that hard ground and burying down in. And that's going to wear their nails down enough naturally that I don't worry about it.
And do they have how bad of a bite from their beak is?
I've never been bit by a Russian tortoise. I would guess that it probably doesn't feel very good. But I've never sseen a Russian tortoise get angry enough that it actually wanted to bite me.
And I don't think we're going to try today either.
No, they don't eat meat at all that I've seen. I've heard stories of them eating night crawlers and stuff, but my guys don't have any interest in anything like that, and I don't think it would be very healthy for them, from what I understand. But I've seen box turtles and such. You could put your hand down in the enclosure and they'll bite your hand. I've had that happen to me a couple times with box turtles, because they do eat worms, and I guess to them our fingers look kind of like worms. I guess it would probably hurt, but I don't think I've ever heard of a Russian tortoise actually biting someone, so I think we're safe.
I mean, these guys seem pretty mellow, so...
Yeah, they're pretty easy going.
So besides using the restroom on you, being scared, do they musk at all? Do they...
No, I mean, if you pick them up, they might go to the bathroom on you. I don't trust the back end, but that's about it.
So front end safe, back end not.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's safe about a tortoise except for that part right there. That's what I wanted to mention a minute ago too. If you're buying a young Russian tortoise and you're not sure if you got a male or a female and you want to know for sure before it gets older, all you got to do is look at their tail. And males are going to have a longer tail than the female. It's a pretty simple way to tell. And they're pretty close in size, but look at the size difference between the animals. So even though his tail is it's actually still a little bit longer than hers. If they were the same size animal, that would be a significant difference in tail length.
Do they make noise at all?
What did I say a minute ago? You can't trust the back end of a tortoise? Well, he's proved his point. I knew that they would tell around you, someone be silent. Yeah, you know, most of the time you hear them making noise like that when they're breeding, and boys will make some vocalizations. But honestly, you want a silent pet that is personable and just nice to have around, and you can't do better than a little Russian Tortoise. We've got one at the house that is my wife's absolute favorite, and she feeds her dandelions all the time. She loves dandelions, and the tortoise will come running for her game. And she taught her that by calling her by her name and then giving her a dandelion when she gets there. The tortoise now will answer to her name for her, not for me. Even though I've had the tortoise longer than I've had my wife, the tortoise has chosen her over me.
That's okay. Loki likes me over my brother there behind the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other day he went to pick Loki up, and Loki had set him and he was not having it.
He opened mouthed me.
Yeah, hit him with an open mouth.
Oh, that's cool.
Because he was hungry and angry.
He's hangry.
He's hangry.
He's hangry. Well, we usually feed him on Thursdays.
Okay. Okay.
So now he's hangry
Oh,
because
so
I
you're-
switched his feeding day.
Okay, yeah, you're a couple days late. Hey, you know, it doesn't hurt him to go a little bit without. Sometimes